Hi, this is Frank Taylor with Nature at Your Door. And today, I'm still at my door, but I'm at the door of my tent on the coast of South Carolina. And today's episode is going to be on a bird that introduced itself to me right here at my door, right outside my tent. And the name of this bird is the boat-tailed grackle. And I wasn't familiar with this bird because we don't have them where I live in Virginia. This is strictly a coastal species. From Virginia south to Florida, from Florida west to Texas, they hug the coastline because they breed in salt marshes. And you'll only find them on the coast unless you're in Florida. For some reason, they go inland. They're a fascinating bird. I'm going to talk about their biology, their behavior. I'll introduce the concepts of generalist and specialist species and how some birds are generalists and some birds are specialists. And this particular bird, I was very impressed with what I saw from him. He is the ultimate omnivore. He'll eat anything, and he still kept many of his skills. So today's episode is on the biology of the boat-tailed grackle. If you come to the beach and hang out at the beach or go to McDonald's at the beach or hang out on a pier at the beach, you're going to see these birds. They're very, very ubiquitous here, meaning they're everywhere. And they're very vocal and very easy to see, and you can observe some great bird behaviors. So stay tuned for the boat-tailed grackle. Right here in your backyard. You never know what you're going to find. And here's to make this invasive. There's exotic. Dogwoods are flowering. And I just took a couple swipes terrestrial environment.
Produce seed pollen. And it's...
Well, while we're learning about the biology of this really cool bird that I discovered at the beach, or should I say discovered me, I'd like to present the concepts of biology of specialist and generalist species. So what is a specialist species and what is a generalist species? Specialist species is an organism that has very special needs or has a very narrow range of environmental variables that suit it in order to live. An example of a specialist species would be a koala bear. Koala bears feed only on eucalyptus leaves. They need a eucalyptus forest. If there aren't any eucalyptus trees, there aren't any koala bears. So the koala bear is a specialist species. A monarch butterfly could be considered a specialist species because it feeds only on milkweed. If there's no milkweed, there's no monarch butterflies. If the milkweed population decreases, the monarch butterfly population decreases. So they're very specialized. Generalist species have a wide range of environmental conditions or a wide range of foods that they can subsist on. For example, a raccoon can live equally well in the forest or in a city. While it's in the forest, it can feed on natural foods and it can find them. For example, finding crayfish in streams, raccoons are really good at that. But if they're living in a city and they don't have access to streams, they can survive feeding on garbage dumps and garbage cans and stealing pet food. So they're considered to be a generalist. Another species that might be considered a generalist is the woolly bear caterpillar. Woolly bear feeds on all kinds of leaves, from trees to herbs in the ground. When it's on the ground or in a field, it can feed on dandelions, plantain, clover, and almost any other herbaceous plant. So the woolly bear is a generalist. So as you watch this video, I want you to think about, is the boat-tailed grackle, is it a specialist or generalist, and why? And then we'll revisit this question at the end of the video. So I first observed this bird around my tent camping site, which is about 20 yards from the beach in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. These birds are gregarious, they're not shy, and they're all around our campground. They're a pretty good-sized bird. Their tail makes up about half their body length. To give you a little perspective, they're smaller than a common crow, but bigger than a robin or a blue jay. They look very similar to the closely related common grackle, but these birds have a boat keel shape in the tail, are strictly coastal. They're found all along the coastline from Virginia down around Florida, west to Texas, and then down to Mexico. They stay very close to salt water. They're never far away from salt water, except when they're in Florida, where they can be found inland. The males hold their tail in the shape of a keel, or a downward V, and that gives them their name, the boat-tailed grackle. Males have rounded heads and almost an iridescent kind of blue-black color, and it kind of looks different depending on how the light is shining on it. The females are dark brown above and have a lighter reddish brown underneath. They also have long tails, but it doesn't seem as pronounced as in the males. Boat-tailed grackles live in coastal marshes, and that's where they breed and have their nests. The nests will be in marsh grasses or in trees above the water. And the marsh is a really great place for a lot of different species of birds. A lot of different species are here in the salt marshes on the coast. The females nest in colonies or in groups under the protection of a dominant male that has fought and displayed to earn that role. And while the male is dominant and is sort of in charge of this harem of females, data has shown that his DNA is only in about a quarter of the offspring. This, with a dominant male, is unique to birds in North America. Most birds in North America have pair bonds and have one male and one female raising a family. But here we have a group of females under the protection of a dominant male. One of the really fun things about observing birds is seeing their characteristic behaviors and just simply watching them and see what they do. So I watched these males displaying to each other on a local pier. This is Apache Pier. It's located in between the main part of Myrtle Beach and North Myrtle Beach on the South Carolina seacoast. It's a very popular place for vacationers to come. These males displayed a lot of different behaviors, but one of the ones I thought was most interesting and enjoyed watching was their characteristic heads-up display and posturing at each other. This is a way of asserting their dominance and fending off other males. A characteristic call of the boat-tailed grackles is this very loud jeep, 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 which we'll demonstrate here. They'll also make a lot of different kinds of harsh whistles and rattles and clicking of their bills and a kind of chortle sound. Here's some of the different sounds that they make. It's really cool watching them and listening to them and trying to catch them doing these different vocal displays. The other thing that I found really fascinating as I watched them and followed them around a bit during the couple-day period that I observed them was their fascinating feeding behaviors. The ones I first met at the campground showed me that they were expert beggars. Apparently had learned behaviors where If they did this behavior, they would be rewarded with someone tossing them crackers or popcorn or some kind of snack that they could feed on. So I think by accident and trial and error, they learned that if someone was picnicking, if they gathered around, made some calls, turned their head sideways, walked close by, somebody might toss them something. So humans have inadvertently reinforced this behavior. On the pier, I think rather than displaying beggar and give me some food behaviors, they turned into sneaky little thieves and stole food. Some of the fishermen used shrimp for bait, and they had the shrimp in these little plastic boxes. I watched these birds, watch fishermen open that bait box and turn to put a shrimp on their hook. And while they were turned, the bird slipped in, grabbed a shrimp, and took off with it. I watched other birds watch people taking out their lunch and put it next to them on the bench. And then if they were gone or while they weren't looking, they'd sneak up and help themselves to some of that lunch as well. Very expert thieves. And these birds never lacked for boldness, like this one right here that grabbed a piece of fish out of someone's hand. While I was impressed with their ability to learn and their opportunistic behaviors, I was a little disappointed as an ecologist to see them so dependent on humans. In my thinking, I thought, well, these birds will never be able to survive out in the wild. But as a true opportunist, these birds would take advantage of anything they could find to eat. They were actually still expert hunters in the wild. I watched these birds expertly find food in the surf zone between high and low tide, and they would follow the waves and follow the tide up and down the beach. And there's a number of different organisms that feed in that area in the sand. Two of the most prolific ones in this area of the beach were these coquina mussels that are very pretty, attractive looking, small bivalve mollusks with two shells. They're like little clams that would feed in the surf zone. And the boat-tailed grackles were expert at finding them, catching them, rinsing them off, breaking them open, and feeding on the nutritious protein inside. So I was very impressed with their sophistication of their food gathering mechanisms and their ability to learn to get food from any resource that was available. Boat-tailed grackles. Are they generalist species or are they specialist species? In one way, we might say they're specialists because they stay right on the coastline and they're very, very tied to tidal regions and salt water. They're never far from salt water. But on the other hand, when we look at their ability to learn and adapt to humans, they live side by side with humans, and they also can take advantage of human foods, but as well as their native wild foods. So for these reasons, I would classify the boat-tailed grackle as a generalist because it can consume such a wide variety of food resources. Well, I hope you enjoyed the latest episode of Nature at Your Door at the ocean side. Most of you who've been watching my channel know that I live in the Appalachian Mountains in the southwestern part of Virginia, and it's really fun to come down and see what nature would adore in my tent. So I'm going to come back here and see what appears at my door next time. So thanks for watching Nature at Your Door. And remember, I'm supposed to ask you, please subscribe and like my channel so we can spread the word out to other people that might be interested and have like-minded observations of nature. Thanks for watching.